I be sparking and rushing mad like inside the dark. Call me Will Snatcher, just a brother for the rapture. I hang live, holding on strong, hard to capture, extravagant. Resurrect the track and it's militant. And I react like a convict and start killing. It's manifesting. The God's work like appliances, dealing in my same like a lot.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys some breaking news for Boruto's manga. We have brand new spoilers courtesy of Organic Dinosaur for Boruto chapter 74, and there's a few developments that are happening in this chapter that we do need to talk about. The first thing that should really stand out based off of these spoilers is the fact that we get to see one of the hidden powers that Ada was teased to have been in possession of, and the powers in particular are gonna bring up something that was actually brought up to me by one of my patrons over a year ago. In terms of a Boruto fan theory, it looks like the patron might have been right on this one. The other thing on this is that we get to see more of how Ada's powers work, and there's a confirmation in regards to her ability for enchantment, something that we've been speculating here on the channel about how the powers themselves work. There's a major confirmation on that end. And then also we get confirmation of something that Ada had said in the past, but for whatever reason, people still wanted to cling on to the belief that it wasn't true, which is the fact that Damon is stronger than Kawaki and stronger than Boruto. Why people to this day still can't wrap their heads around the fact that we've been told these are cyborgs stronger than Jigen, but when Damon bodies somebody, we get into utter shock. The fact is Damon is showing feats that you got to put some respect on the kid's name. So now that we got that out of the way, let's look at what we have here from Organic Dinosaurs. And like always, what I'm going to do, I'm only going to talk about some of the key points from the spoilers themselves. I'm going to wait for the full chapter. That way I can give my full thoughts, because based off of what we've read off of this, the success or failure of this chapter is going to come down to how well Ikimoto draws the expressions for some of these characters, because there's a lot of humor that's sprinkled into the chapter itself. So getting right into what we have here. So the first thing that we see here is that when Ada and Damon have arrived at the train station, it's been a few days that have passed since we were told by Amato that it was going to take them 3 or 4 days in order to get to Konoha. And essentially they've pulled into the train station. They've already set up the apartment and had everything going. According to Konohamaru, they kicked out some random citizen of Konoha out of a luxury apartment, and they're very pissed off about it. And they also took somebody out of another apartment on the other side. That way the members of Team 7 can keep up surveillance. So that right there is interesting, because I thought maybe they were going to have them outside of Konoha in order to prevent Ada from enchanting more people and putting more people under her control, but that's not the case here. But Ada does use her powers in order to avoid enchanting as many people as possible. However, that's an interesting call right there, that she's actually going to be inside the village itself, not in some secure location outside the village, potentially with some type of sealing jutsu in order to keep them trapped inside of a barrier. So that's interesting that we have this bit right here. Now, the other thing about this is that when Ada shows up and she takes off, Ada doesn't run through the village or anything like that. Ada actually uses flight. And so we're seeing that Ada and Damon, they have more powers than what they've actually displayed. That was teased to us early on when Code was trying to find out more about how Damon's abilities work. And the way that Ada stopped Damon, it was more than just revealing whether or not Damon had a weakness to his reflection jutsu and Ada trying to prevent it, because Code directly asked her, are you hiding more powers? And Ada's response was, well, isn't that interesting? And ever since then, a lot of people have been saying like she can't be hiding any type of powers. That don't make any sense. Some people forgot that because this is a monthly manga, and so the little details like that, if you're not keeping a conscious record of different things that are being said, stuff like this might rub you the wrong way. I'm fine with it because it was foreshadowed, much in the same way that Code being betrayed by Ada and Damon was foreshadowed as well. Now, based off what we saw, the thing that I said was going to happen when I was on the Cloud Ninja podcast with Barbie and Free Game and Mello, I said that more than likely this chapter was going to have a heavy focus on what I'm dubbing the horny house, with Ada, Damon, and Kawaki in the same room with Boruto, and that most likely you're going to be seeing either some perverted humor or just humor in general. You get that in this chapter. That's why I said this chapter's success or failure is going to live or die based off of how well Ikimoto draws expressions. It's cool to do the water cooler talk like, oh, Code's going to pull up to the village and this should happen here or there. That shit's cool to talk about, you know, passing the time, filling the void, but them being in the horny house for an extended period of time, it makes more sense. It's too soon for Code to show up right now. We definitely got some stuff there. However, there's some other stuff that was set up here. Now, Ada's powers of flight, the reason why that interests me as much as it does is Amato in the chapter makes a comparison to how the Otsutsuki are able to implement flight in their powers, and Amato says that it's a common thing for people that have Otsutsuki genetics. Now, the reason why that should kind of grab you is he goes on to say that Boruto and Kawaki will end up using that power of flight at some point as well, which that's a whole nother dynamic right there. And while in the Naruto world, we have seen people like Onoiki be able to utilize flight, and we've seen Naruto be able to utilize flight when utilizing Six Paths Power, which, as a reminder, Six Paths Power and Sage of Six Paths Mode are two different things. Why we're still in 2022 and people still don't know the difference between Six Paths Power and Six Paths Sage Mode, I don't understand, but that's still a common thing. Even though Kishimoto wrote in Naruto Data Book 4 that they're two separate powers. Well, the thing about this is that we're not told how Ada and Damon are able to actually fly, but the reason why that's really interesting is a while back I did a Boruto fan theory that one of my patrons submitted to me, where I was already working on something saying like it really feels like a mob hideout, but my patron said, what if they might have potentially had Otsutsuki genetics via some type of a failed karma seal or something, and they're keeping it hidden, or the Otsutsuki ended up passing away and their karma ended up being removed, which would have confirmed why Amato had as much information as he did on the Otsutsuki. Here's the thing on that. I don't know if that's going to be true. This has moved out from being a fan theory to being something that there might be a connection with Ada and Damon and those Otsutsuki more than just the powers themselves. They might have some type of genetics implemented into them. That's going to be interesting if that is something kind of shown on there, and that would explain why Ada's powers, she says that Otsutsuki are the ones that are immune from them. Now, the next thing that really stands out here is that when Ada and Damon end up meeting Boruto and Kawaki, Kawaki and Boruto, they try to attack Damon in this chapter, and about a third of the chapter itself is devoted to Damon just bodying these guys. And what's interesting about this is that when Kawaki fights against Damon, Damon ain't just stomping this dude, he's flexing on him, because when Kawaki shoots out those chakra rods at him, Damon not only catches them with his bare hands, but he also catches one of them with his teeth, which that's pretty cool. I actually saw the panel for that. I'm not going to put it in the video because I got a copyright strike last time I did the Boruto manga chapter spoilers, so I'm not going to put the panels on here. But what I will say is that Damon catches them with his hands and he catches them with his mouth, and Damon's smirking while doing so. And that goes back to what Ada said, which is that Damon could be used to handle Kawaki. Kawaki's not really a threat. So that's really cool. And the reason why I like this is that if you go back to what we saw in the past, this is putting Damon in. However, Damon's reaction speed is faster than Sasuke's Eternal Mangekyo. And even with somebody weaker than Ishikin and Jigen, Sasuke was able to track the chakra rods, but he was too slow to react to them. And Naruto needed Baryon mode in order to amp up all of his stats in order to boost up his eye speed, because Naruto was able to do a very similar thing that Damon did here. Now, based off of the few panels I have seen, it doesn't look like he snatched them out as easily as Naruto did, but the fact that he's snatching them out of thin air when Kawaki's shooting them off, that's going to be one of two things. That's either going to be Kawaki still getting used to using Ishiki's power, or that just goes back to why Jigen ordered these cyborgs to be destroyed, because any type of science that can take people like Ada and Damon and boost them up to a level this high, that's some dangerous ninja tech, and that's why they were ordered to be destroyed right here. And you're getting confirmation of it, because those chakra rods, those played a huge role in Jigen's battle arsenal, because Jigen shot out those chakra rods as an opportunity to catch people off guard. Same thing with using the Daikokuten and everything. Jigen utilize that stuff, and Damon is showing that he has the potential to be able to hard counter a lot of that stuff with just speed itself. So that's interesting. But the fact that Boruto and Kawaki, they try to attack Damon, and neither one of them is able to do anything against Damon to the point where Damon knocks them stone cold unconscious, where Boruto is knocked all the way out and wakes up, doesn't realize what happened. It's giving Boruto a little bit more incentive. Now, this is something I would want to see going forward, and I'm going to be very interested to see how the chapters themselves actually handle this. Boruto and Kawaki, for the most part, they got all this power, but we've this. Having the main character go through some form of training, that is one opportunity